Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
All right, welcome to Launch Code Podcast with Evan Hafer, Oh shit, I've had a lot of caffeine. Evan Hafer, Baker Leavitt, and Jack Carr today. That is our guest for the Launch Code Podcast. So Jack, if I can call you that, is that professionally acceptable?
You may.
Okay. Jack's got an interesting background, and this is 2 launch codes in a row. Actually, this is about 3 in a row because we had Rutherford on, Jocko, and now Jack Carr, Navy SEAL number 3. We've probably had more, but yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jack. First and foremost, it's The Terminal List. That's your book.
That is.
And I wanted to get you on here for a combination of reasons because you're a veteran that has written could you define it as a success at this point?
I think so.
Right? Yeah, successful.
It's exceeding expectations on all fronts, which is always a good thing.
That is a good thing. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What did you do in the military? When did you transition, that whole nine?
Yeah, so just quick background is there are 2 things that I wanted to do with my life from a very early age. And one of those was to serve my country in uniform as a Navy SEAL as soon as I found out what they were when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
Yep. And I can go back and talk a little bit about that. But the other thing was to write fiction in this genre. And then I always knew that the SEAL thing had to come first, just by default. And as I was getting out of the SEAL teams during that last year, I said, okay, it's time to pursue that other dream. Because if I don't do it now, I don't want to look back when I'm 80 years old, 85 years old on my deathbed and say, man, I wonder what would have happened had I given that other dream a shot.
Right.
So started writing this book and always wanted to write political military thrillers and got this to the right person in New York who happened to love it. And next thing you know, off we go to the races.
Well, it's interesting because you and I had the exact 2 dreams, and I missed them both because I didn't become a Navy SEAL and I haven't written a book. So
there's still time.
I've got to have some kind of corrective.
I think you're doing okay though. You make great coffee.
Great coffee. I had 2 dreams, which was become a Green Beret and eventually be a coffee roaster. So, cheers to that, man.
Cheers.
Look at that.
Cheers. And you make great coffee.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very powerful.
How old were you when you said you decided that you wanted to be a science fiction writer?
So, not science fiction, but I wanted to do that from a very early age. My mom was a librarian, so I'll skip back to the military side.
Is your mom still? Is she still around?
Still a librarian. Yeah,
wow.
And that's how I found out about SEALs very very early on, and how we were able to do some research back in the early '80s because with no internet, there was not much information out there. There was a few mentions in a couple books here and there, and a couple magazine articles, but without a mom that was a librarian that knew how to use the Dewey Decimal System and do some research, it would be hard to.
Which
find
ones
out
were you reading when you were a kid? Because I read a bunch of them too. I talked to Jocko about it actually.
Okay, so I'll start with how I found out about them first. So that's the movie The Frogmen, and I think that was from the 50s or something, but it was back in the day there was only a couple channels on TV. So on the weekends when my dad was watching football, I had 2 minutes for a commercial break to flip to the other station and watch a war movie and then run back, flip it back to football, watch that for however long that took. Then a commercial would come up, my dad would look at his watch again and say go, and I'd run up and flip it to the war movie, playing opposite football on Sundays. And saw this movie with these guys coming up over the beach and blowing up obstacles in advance of conventional.
It was a legit movie. It wasn't like a documentary.
It's called The Frogmen. Yeah, legit movie, old school movie, black and white. And I asked my dad, "Hey, who are these guys?" And he said, very knowingly, "Those are the Frogmen," because that was the name of the movie.
Right.
Good work, Dad. And I said, "Hey, what are frogmen? That looks pretty cool." And football was back on by that point, so he said, "Go ask your mother." So I did. And Mom said, "Let's go to the library." Any opportunity to get us kids to the library, she took it. So off we went to the library and did some research and found a couple mentions in a couple different books. There was a magazine called, I think, Gung Ho magazine that came out. It was only, I don't know how long that was out there for.
That's a different publication. Now that's out of evidently L.A., Baker.
Is it still around for real?
No, I'm just joking.
So there was a mention in there. There was actually a VHS tape that showed SEALs in Vietnam. and had these guys with the stoner machine guns just rocking it.
Documentary.
Okay. Yep. So that was out there. And then I read a book called Brotherhood of the Rose, and that was by a guy named David Morrell, who's still writing today. He's an amazing guy. He's become a great friend, and he actually created the character Rambo back in 1973 with First Blood.
Wow.
But his book Brotherhood of the Rose isn't about SEALs. Actually, the main protagonists are former SF guys, but he mentions SEALs in there, and what he said about them kind of cemented in my head, like, okay, I've seen this movie The Frogman, I've seen this VHS tape with these guys blasting away with this stoner. David Morrell is mentioning it in this book called Brotherhood of the Rose. I'm in. So they had me from a very, very early age.
No external influences from like some old copies of like Soldier of Fortune?
I think I had not discovered Soldier of Fortune then, but I did soon thereafter.
There you go.
So yeah, I had. I don't think they even publish that anymore. I think it's all online now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I knew a couple of writers from that, guys that I knew. But so when I was in high school, I read a couple of books on the Navy SEALs. One was Good to Go.
Yep,
Did you
I
ever
read
read
that
one?
I don't think I read that one. Point Man was one of them around that time frame, early 90s, I think.
I read several, but the one that I really remember was Good to Go. And they talked a lot about the Phoenix program in that one.
Yeah.
And, probably stuff that you shouldn't have been reading at that age. Like really shouldn't have, like it went into like graphic detail about like knifing dudes on a trail and like sticking this dagger up through the undercarriage of their ribs so you could hit their heart. And like, I'm like 15 just going, yeah, that's badass.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I can only imagine if they had the internet back then.
Yeah. I would have been watching all kinds of weird shit. Yeah. None of which would have been good for a 15-year-old. So you're indoctrinating yourself.
Yeah. But I think to your point there, that kids in that age, let's say fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, early high school years, like need heroes. And for us, we found them in those pages of some of the nonfiction books, and then for me in some of the fictional ones, because I also started reading books by David Morrell, by Nelson DeMille, J.C. Pollock, A.J. Quinnell, like all these guys in the 80s.
Did you read those Mac Bolan books?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So there might be some Mac Bolan influence on the pages of the Terminal List for those out there that remember Mac Bolan. He's still probably going strong, is my guess.
Probably.
Yeah.
I used to love the loadout when in a Mac Bolan book, he used to have these like loadouts and he would list all the guns and all the full meal deal. And I was like, this is so legit.
I haven't said this publicly before, but I was a member of the Mac Bolan fan club.
What?
Yeah, there was such a thing. And every month you'd get your books. You'd get a Mac Bolan book, maybe two. You'd get Phoenix Force. You'd get Able Team.
Wow.
All in a little box. It would, it distressed my mother to no end because she's a librarian and wanted me reading other things.
Right.
She eventually threw them all out, actually. I had all my Mac Bolans just ended up probably in the trash.
When you went off to the military or before?
Before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was she like mad at you or something?
No, I just think that she took one summer of me being away and took the opportunity to clean my shelves of all things that didn't meet her standard, of which the Mac Bolan books made up quite a few.
Yeah, I know that because I had a bookshelf full of just trash too. I wouldn't classify them as trash. Definitely not for a sixth grader.
No, they're great.
Any opportunity you can get a sixth grader to read on their own, I think you're winning, right?
Oh well, remember
you're winning.
I mean, we all remember Mac Bolan and his Desert Eagle 50
cal.
Oh yeah, he loved that one.
Yeah.
I think he loved the Mac 10. Those were his two go-tos.
Yeah, no, he liked the. There was a. He liked the M79, so the grenade launcher.
Who doesn't? That's legit.
And then he had this smaller version of that 40 millimeter. I think they had a smaller version with a rotating drum, like early on. In
I think it made the cover of a few.
It did. Yeah. Yeah.
No, you know it's all good stuff. I know. Yeah. No, I was all about it. I still remember a couple of my favorites actually were the ones I like the ones where he went on vacation, and even though he was on vacation, something happened. Like he was out there by himself in the wilderness, and then he gets attacked by Spetsnaz or something like that on a river in Utah or Idaho.
So good.
It's great stuff.
That's like so MacGyver. Like that guy didn't live it. He didn't go a day in life without getting some shit, you know?
No, he's not getting a break.
Didn't get a break. You're not going to.
But the funny thing you mentioned, like your mom threw books away. The one publication that no mother will ever throw away is National Geographic.
Oh, no.
Yeah. My mother has, I'm not shitting, 30 years of National Geographics.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
No, we just talked about that the other day because once a friend stopped by from the SEAL teams on his way back to San Diego, and just 2 nights ago. And when I was deployed once, we moved. I planned all my deployments around moving, and so my wife was going to have to do it by herself. So he stopped by and moved all my books. And I've been collecting books for a long time, and they included those National Geographics that my mom did not throw away. And so he got to load all those up and drive them across Coronado.
And National Geographic is also your average man's first exposure to pornography. First time you saw a
confirm
boobie.
nor deny.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know that wasn't a thing though, where I was looking at it going, yeah, that's attractive.
No, I didn't say attractive or unattractive. I just said, hey, there's a boob.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Okay, so now that Baker's completely ruined the conversation. So when did you graduate from high school?
So 91 got out of high school.
Did you go straight into the Navy?
Nope. When I did, I wanted to do college first, so I'd have a backup because my research, I didn't pay attention to exactly what the attrition rate was, which hovers around 80%, give or take, for buds. And of course, I thought I'll be in that 20% that makes it. But I also knew the importance of contingency plans. So I said, hey, just in case, I'm going to go to college first and have a little bit of a backup. So I did that first, and it also allowed me to keep training. And because back then you didn't really, there's nothing out there on the internet about secret. There was no internet, so you couldn't really do any research other than, hey, 80% of people don't make it. This is really hard. I've seen people on the obstacle course, and I've seen some guys coming out of the surf zone, and that was about it. So all you had to do for training was, I guess I need to be as tough as possible. So did a lot of boxing, got into jiu-jitsu very early in the early 90s. I've since stopped since I'm going to be probably getting spine surgery here in the next couple weeks again. But so I did all that stuff earlier on and just trained and just I was solely focused on getting to the SEAL teams, getting through buds, getting to my first SEAL team. And then I thought it was going to be all secret missions as soon as I showed up. And those days was 1997. I showed up at my first SEAL team, and it was time to clean the bathroom, paint the wall, change the light bulbs, do new guy stuff.
Yeah,
so got to do that for a while. Yeah, that's it.
So what's your degree in?
Criminology.
Okay.
So I just wanted something that would get me through college as quickly as possible and get me to the SEAL teams. So
let me ask you this: looking back on it, most SEALs have the same answer, but like, what was the hardest part for you for buds? And I mean, in the moment, like when you were going through something, there had to be a time that was really, really tough for you. Like, what was the hardest part for you?
Yeah, it sounds weird, but and I'll give you two. So the one that I always think about is having to take your boots on and off all the time, for all these different evolutions, and get them back on. Like, I just hated taking my boots on and off. So I've been strictly a flip-flop guy ever since. But just taking the boots on and off for all those different evolutions while you're getting yelled at to hurry up. So I hated that. But as far as physical/mental, it was the swims, initially anyway, because I didn't know that stroke, that underwater recovery stroke. And now we teach guys. Now we give them a whole bunch of training when they leave boot camp, and they go and they get classes on nutrition, on mindset, how to work out with the logs, how to carry the boats, like all this stuff. So they're the most prepared physically and mentally you could possibly be when you show up for buds now. We didn't have any of that. So learning that stroke was tough for me. So I went from, I think, second to last on our first swim. And then I just struggled until somebody that had been a water polo player in college took me aside, taught me the stroke, and from my class, not from the instructor staff. And then I went from second to last to second.
Wow.
So learning that technique, that was tough. And then being worried about, oh man, I'm a good swimmer. How can I not figure out this dank stroke?
That's pretty impressive, going from second to last to second in swimming, which is, I think is a skill that you have to develop over time. Like, I don't think people just jump, oh, he's a natural swimmer, he's never swam before, but look, this guy can really do it. That's actually really cool.
And so it's a multiple swim, so I might be exaggerating. It might be on one of those swims I was second, but I'm airing up. So anyway, I went from almost last in the top.
That's awesome.
So, but learning that technique was so helpful, and that's why we have fitter quitters today. We call them, because we spend.
What are those?
So we spend millions of dollars getting these guys ready to go to buds now, instead of just baptism by fire, kicking them into there like when I went through. So now they get all this training before they show up, and we still get that 80% attrition.
That's super interesting, right? Where you're still having the same attrition rate, but
they haven't been through a Crucible yet.
Yeah.
So that's the Crucible right there, and Hell Week is where most of those come from.
Well, yeah, because it's about the same attrition rate across the board, actually, I think, as far as the special operations is looked at. I remember talking to a USASOC psychologist that had kind of spent time and everybody has their own thing, you know, like ours is like in the woods at night carrying a rucksack and you're by yourself.
Robin Sage.
You're by yourself. You know, it's like the Star Course and it's team events and you're putting tons of weight on your back and you're like humping through the sand and you graded on how well you contribute to your team. Same shit, right? Yeah. And then, but the whole thing, you know, is a year and a half. So that's a grind, or 2 years, depending on whether or not you go to the medical course. And then you got like Sage, which Sage is a whole other animal. And I remember guys had been in the course for like a year and a half getting dropped in Sage, and you're just like, oh my God, it's so fucking brutal, dude. It's just brutal. Like you failed your patrol and you're like,
is that right at the end?
Yeah, dude. Okay. That was the last like 20 some days at the very end. And
interesting.
Like so you'd already gone through everything. So you went through selection, you went through phase 1. At that time there was like phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3 was Sage. That was the last thing you had to do before you went to language school.
Was Sage tough?
There were aspects.
Not for you in general, I mean, but is it regarded as a tough test?
Yeah, I mean, I remember at times. I mean, I did like a 36-hour infill with. I was carrying 15 pounds less than my body weight for 36 hours. It was fucking a grind, and I remember a guy literally quitting on infill because it was fucking brutal. Like you're like humping 135 pounds through the mountains of North Carolina. It's like pissing rain the entire time. You're jackhammering from, you know, lack of like calories, and you know, we'd have like what we call the honorable quits that are like guys that are like rolling their ankles or whatever. And it's like, dude, you still got to carry the weight. Like medevac ain't coming. Like, you still got to go. But
you can quit in an hour, man.
Yeah. I always like that. I always like seeing the guys. I mean, it sounds terrible to say. Maybe we could edit this out later.
No.
But I always liked seeing the guys quit
when
I was in there, because I thought this is the program working. Mm-hmm. This guy should not be here. So a lot of people in class would always yell out, "Hey, come back, come back!" if they're leaving the surf zone during Hell Week to go ring the bell, which we put in the trailer hitch of the truck. That's always visible. So for that entire Hell Week, that whole 5 days, you see the bell, because the rest of the course, it's over by the first phase office, and you have to like run to it from wherever you are to quit. But in Hell Week, we make it quite easy to just stand up and quit it, because it's right there with you the whole time.
I thought that was, I called that the vampire effect. So that's what I actually coined that. And like, it was like, it would give you new life to see people quit.
It's like you take their energy.
Yeah, you could steal their energy. So I'd look for it. And then you'd like look for it and be like, dog, you got to roll out, man. Like, you're not doing so good.
So I didn't take it to that extreme. I wouldn't actually talk people into quitting, but I wouldn't try to bring them back.
Chris Irwin told me a story. There was a guy in his buds class that like would claim like 8 confirmed kills. He'd be like, "Hey man, let's get the fuck out of here." And the guys would be like, "Yeah man, I'm with you." And they'd go like taking off to ring the bell, and he'd like whip around and just run back. And the guy would some story Irwin told me about.
That's funny.
But
That's super funny.
Yeah.
But it wasn't him. It was someone in his class. But John Timor, who's running Killcliff now, I was with him in Atlanta Thursday, and he told me, I asked him that same question I just asked you, and he said the hardest, the closest he ever, like the biggest battle he ever had with himself was, I think he said it was, and I'll probably butcher this, but it was like the third night of Hell Week where you guys like go to the chow hall, and you have like an hour, you know, to get like your coffee, your food, and all that stuff. And he was like, man, it's like, and then you have to, someone's on watch on the boat. So there's like 3 boats or whatever, and there's someone stands watch for 20 minutes at a time.
Yep.
And he said that the guy, so the 2 guys came out to relieve the other guys, and there was this ambulance parked like right in front of the boats, and they kept going like, hot coffee, warm donuts. And they kept saying it. But the guy that was supposed to relieve him quit during chow. So he's just standing there. Yeah. And finally he said he like threw his paddle down and ran over to the window and just started like beating on it. And like someone realized like, oh yeah, other CO or whatever he said. I was like, shit, someone go relieve Timor. So he's like, I only had like 20 minutes to eat. But he said that was the thing that almost got him, was they kept going, hot coffee, warm donuts. Oh yeah, just out of a speaker, like right into his face.
Yep. Oh yeah, they make it quite easy to self-select out of the program, which is part of the genius of it, and why we get such a high caliber guy coming out the other end of the process.
But you mentioned fitter quitters. So John Welborn and I went and visited the Air Force.
Who?
John Welborn.
Oh, okay.
The Air Force Special Operations training thing at, what is it, Lackland or whatever, the Air Force Base over here. And they were talking about fitter quitters. And I was like, well, if you kind of look at it in a positive light, I don't see any downside to having dudes that are in much better shape, more knowledgeable on food, nutrition, and stuff, and have been through something pretty tough, going back out into the fleet, and hopefully some of that rubs off onto some of the other guys. And he was like, yeah, that's one way we look at it. But they went on about that at length because they can get them ready physically, nutrition, recovery, all that stuff, sleep, everything, monitor their vitals, everything. But the one thing that they'll never be able to test and will never change is that mental strength. And correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of what you guys made it through was based on mental strength. I mean,
yeah, that's really what we're trying to find is that person that has that mental fortitude to never quit, keep driving forward, just like in life.
Yeah.
So when somebody quits, so later I was on the other side of that as the OPSO getting ready to leave the military, and that bell by the first phase office was right by my office at Bud. So I got to see everybody that would come up, stand by that bell, put their helmet down, and ring it 3 times, and you could just see the dejection, just their face. It was just awful to watch. So where I liked guys quitting when I was actually in Buds, in the surf zone, when I was out of Buds as the OPSO years and years later, 15 plus years later, I hated to watch that because you could say, hey, this guy has the same dreams and aspirations that you probably had at that age, and now for whatever reason he's decided not to continue on with the program. So it's hard to see that. But then again, our instructors also know that, hey, once somebody quits, they can turn into normal people, like our instructors, and they want to make sure that this person knows they can still go on to serve their country, take care of their family, do good things, and they don't want this kid going back and feeling dejected for the rest of his life.
Live under a bridge or something.
Turn it into a positive. It's going to be hard enough anyway. So so much of life is turning those negatives into positives.
What % of people that make it through do you think that know they're going to make it through? Do you think people that quit know they're going to quit before they even start?
I don't know. I never even thought about it. So I just knew I was not going to quit because I've been telling all my friends since I was 7 years old that I'm going to make it through.
Yeah. You're like, you know what? I'm going to make it because if I don't, I'm never going to be able to live it down.
Exactly. Everybody has known for so long that's what I wanted to do. There was no way I could show my face again had I not made it through. So it was either I was going to either die or make it through. So,
I had a guy in college that had "Don't Quit" tattooed on his quads, massive
good reminder.
letters.
Yeah.
And this guy knew more about the SEALs than SEAls.
Right.
He knew everything.
He quit day 1?
Didn't
2 or
make
3?
it through boot camp.
Oh wow. That's rough.
Swear to God.
Yeah, I had a few of those guys I was in basic training with that already had like Ranger tabs tattooed on their shoulders. And you're like, bro, I don't know if that was a smart move, man. Like, I really don't think that was a good one.
Yeah,
I don't think that was a good move.
That should probably be disqualifying out of the gate.
Like guys had like, they called them like drive-on tabs, and they were like the tabs, right? And you'd tuck them away somewhere, like in a wallet or something like that, and you'd be able to take it out and look at it. I'm like, I didn't have any of that shit. I was like, I don't want it. I don't want to be distracted with any of this.
Yeah.
Like, leave me alone. Like, just let me focus on this. And I thought that was even sacrilegious to even have it.
Oh yeah.
Like, it just felt like, dude, this is bad juju if I even have something like this.
Yeah, no tridents until you actually get it pounded into your chest.
My brother's best friend showed up to a Marine Corps boot camp with the Marine Corps hymn tattooed across his back.
Wow.
The full hymn.
It's dedication.
Entire back.
Wow, that's legit.
He's all
They
in.
beat his ass. He went on to be honor grad. He's a bad son, but still is a badass. But
No,
his last name is Blome.
Wow.
Blome.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's powerful.
Probably made him tough.
So you go off. You're at the teams. What'd you do when you were at the teams?
Yep. So came in enlisted because I did that research and wanted to come in enlisted to essentially start in the mailroom and work my way up. And once again, this is the influence of popular culture and all those Vietnam movies that I saw as a kid. They always had that guy showing up, brand new officer, a little butter bar on, shows up in Vietnam, and tells the guys, get a haircut, shave. We're gonna do this, and he leads them right into an ambush every single time. Yeah. So I did not want to be that guy. So I think I read Rogue Warrior in 91 or 92, whenever that came out, and saw, he started as an enlisted guy, and then he became an officer. I'm like, what's the difference between those two? Like, I didn't know anything, right? Because you don't know back then. And did my research and found out, hey, officers typically aren't snipers, and that's something I wanted to do, and really wanted to learn the trade, establish a reputation, and then decide later if I wanted to be an officer. So came in enlisted, and was a communications guy, and ended up going to sniper school after my first platoon, because you didn't typically do it on the way to your SEAL team. You did it once you were already there and proved that you were a good enough shot and had the right attitude and all that stuff. So did my first platoon pre-September 11th, and then went to sniper school and started that next workup. Started that next deployment, and about 2 weeks into it was September 11th, and we were already deployed at the time. So we were in Guam, and off we zipped to the Middle East. And we thought we were going to Afghanistan, but we ended up taking over for Team 3, and those guys ended up going to Afghanistan. And we ended up doing the shipboardings in the Northern Arabian Gulf, which before September 11th, they were still exciting afterward, but it was different. You wanted to just get in the fight. You wanted to get to Afghanistan. So we didn't do that right away, but did the shipboardings, which was really interesting to do for 6 months. Because it's like a cop pulling somebody over. I figured you don't know what you're walking up on.
Right.
When you climb those ships as they're heading towards Iranian waters, and they've cut all the ladders off, and they've sealed up all the doors, soldered on big sheets of metal over them, and strewn barbed wire everywhere to foul lines from if you're going to fast rope on. Like you get on that, you just don't know what you're walking up on. So it was pretty interesting I'm glad I have that experience.
What was the most interesting thing you found when you were doing those things?
So it's the time to get on. So you have to get off. If it hits international or Iranian waters, you got to get off that thing. So you don't have too much time to figure it out. So what we ended up doing was instead of trying to get in and get through an entire door, get through an entire window and make entry, we just make a small hole and throw in some smoke and then get them to come out.
Smoke them out, yeah.
Yeah. Because they didn't know what it was. I mean, it was just
fire in the.
It was just it wasn't even CS or anything.
Right.
But they don't know that. So it's just out thinking. So really, that instead of just brute force, how do we just get on and take these guys down? Well, let's think this through a little bit. And so just being able to adapt, which came in handy, of course, later in Iraq and Afghanistan as the enemy adapts to us.
What was the most interesting thing you ran into though?
On those ships, it wasn't really that.
Nothing.
Yeah,
you didn't have like a what the
oil.
fuck moment or anything.
A lot of oil being traded on the black market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they'd turn those same ships around, sell them off again, or auction them off, I think, and then they'd end up doing that same run again.
What was
later.
the run? Like, what was the main run?
Out of Iraq with oil, because the oil embargo from the UN was in place, and so they just needed to get it off to get it out of there to sell it on the black market. So
and where were they selling it? In Iran or?
I don't know what would happen once it hit Iranian waters.
Really?
I'm sure they had a few different conduits for getting it into the world market. But I don't know.
That is super fucking interesting.
Yeah. So I said an E5 on the bridge of one of these class 3 super tankers. So those are the huge oil ones that you see. Having to steer that thing, turn it around back into, get away from Iranian waters and into international waters using my little GPS and then the compass on the
like your little Garmin, like your 60 CSX or whatever that is.
Whatever it was back then. It was not that small one, but it was like a bigger one. But ridiculous. So that was kind of fun.
Do you remember the first ship you boarded?
I think it was a Dow.
But I mean, do you remember that one?
Yeah. Yeah, a little Dow. I don't think it ended up being anything.
What's a Dow for those listening like me that don't know?
Small boat.
Right. Small boat.
Although I was in the Navy for 20 years, my boat nautical terminology is really not what it
you were in the
would
Navy,
be for somebody.
But not really the water Navy.
Exactly.
Right?
My sea time is limited. By limited, I mean almost non-existent.
Like non-existent.
Yeah.
But it sounds like some of the stuff you guys learned on the ships, you were able to transfer that into Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, really just the mindset of it for me anyway. Just trying to outthink it rather than
priming
just
the pump, so to
outforce
speak.
it. So, and we were thinking, we thought we were going to go downrange or if no one knew what was going on in 2001, 2002 timeframe. Like you thought you were going to go any second.
Yeah.
So you're just prepping yourself mentally, physically, just getting ready for that fight. But really, it's being able to adapt to the enemy faster than they're adapting to you.
Evan, you told a story about like when y'all went in, like people had stuff painted on the doors of their Humvees. Like
all our gun trucks had the standard, like we had stuff spray painted, like,
and you had a question mark.
Everybody had like skulls and whatever. They had all this badass shit, and I just went around and spray painted question marks and all our shit.
Like you invented it.
Didn't know what was going to happen.
I don't know. It's one big.
I like it.
Then I put an Amnesty International sticker on my truck. And the joke was we'd pull up and loud horn them, and be like, and they don't speak English, but it was funny for me because I'm like, we're Amnesty International, we're just here to help. It was just an inside joke.
I like it though.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was being super funny, but
I wonder if they got it.
I don't think they got it. I don't think anybody got it but me, and I'm pretty sure that maybe a couple other guys, because the guys on the team, like, they were like, oh, we want some, like, hatchet or, whatever, skull something, and I'm like, I'm not going to put any of that because it might be my skull. I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure it's the other guys.
Yeah, I've been a firm believer in like entering things with the what is it? Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, right? Where
That's
I'm
it.
like, I don't know what's going to happen.
That's it. The contingency planning right there.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about aggressive problem solving, which is not that different from getting out. It's just now I do it on the pages of a novel. So that's what's really fun.
We're not ready to go there yet.
Yeah.
Jack.
I got another SEAL question.
So you go from you're an E5 invasion of Iraq. When did you go to OCS? Or what
so I had to
version of that?
decide. I had to decide in spring of 2001 if
Okay.
I was going to OCS or not.
Got it.
And I thought, oh man, at the time, there's not much going on in the world. I had a really poor leadership in my first 2 SEAL platoons. And instead of complaining about it, I thought, well, this is the time to go to OCS. This is time to put in my package and see if I get accepted. And if I do, then really what I owe it to the guys, rather than just complaining about it, is to actually go.
Right.
So decided before September 11th, and then September 11th happened, and I was like, dang it.
Right.
I should have stayed enlisted. But for someone who became an officer, the timing was pretty good, I must say, because September 11th happened, that deployment, came back, did another little trip right after that, which was great. Went to OCS, 3 months of folding T-shirts and underwear, because that somehow qualifies you to lead men into battle, and then right back to the SEAL teams.
So you don't have to go back to BUDS. You don't have to. So you're just basically, now I'm an officer, now I'm back in the teams.
Right. Now at the time we did not have any sort of professional development at all. Now we have an officer training type program that they do during BUDS. So after BUDS, before SEAL qualification training, the officers get pulled out of their class, and then they start up their SEAL qualification training with the class coming behind them. During that time, they spend, I forget, it's 2 months. And anyway, we have a couple months of officer training specific for them, and then they go to SEAL qualification training. So this is where we professionalized it a little bit, but that was well after my time. So I went right back to the teams. At the time, sometimes they would make you go to SEAL qualification training again as an officer, but because I was so fresh, get a chance at leadership before you do it for real, maybe. But for me, for whatever reason, they just grabbed me and threw me in a platoon.
Well, there was some stuff going on.
Well, did you go back to the same team?
No, change coasts.
Okay.
So usually they do that just so you're not leading the same guys you're drinking with before.
Yeah, for sure.
And for me, it really wouldn't have made any difference. It was a very natural transition, a very natural thing for me to do, to move from enlisted to officer.
You basically, you acted like an officer the entire time you were enlisted.
I think as I was an officer, I acted like I was enlisted. So, which actually ended up working out for me fairly well. But yeah, right back to the teams, right into a platoon, just on a different coast.
Okay.
But your reputation follows you. It's a very small community, as you know. And I had a good run at SEAL Team 2 on the East Coast, and it was very busy then, so we were in the thick of it. So probably my most interesting deployments came during that time frame.
Let me ask you this. Let me go back real quick. You said one of the things, you wanted to be a SEAL and you wanted to be a writer, and then you mentioned a few minutes ago that you wanted to be a sniper, and that was why you chose to go enlisted. Why? Why'd you want to be a sniper? What'd you know about it? Or just it sounded cool?
Yeah, no, growing up reading those books, reading Carlos Hathcock's book, I think that's probably the first one I read.
Long Trang, The White Feather.
That's White Feather, yeah. And that's probably the first one that was a specific sniper nonfiction book that I read. And, it just always appealed to me for whatever reason. I liked the thought of being out there kind of on your own. And, if you're reading the Vietnam books, you're thinking about being advanced of forward operating lines, and just kind of being on your own, away from the flagpole. Just all that stuff appealed to me. The field craft appealed to me. The shooting appealed to me. The problem solving, all of it appealed to me. Even a smaller unit than your special operations unit, just being another piece of that, but even smaller. All that just made sense to me.
Did you have any background shooting growing up?
Yeah, I shot growing up.
Did you hunt growing up?
I didn't hunt. I always wanted to hunt, but this wasn't part of what our family did. But we went to the range and we shot. So I did grow up around guns and grew up shooting, but I didn't necessarily end up hunting until sniper sustainment training at Team 5, which was amazing. They took us to I won't say the name of the place because I don't know if they advertise it, but a ranch up in Washington State.
I know exactly where it is. I've been up there several times. It's great.
Awesome place.
Awesome place.
Great people.
Yeah.
So I went up there in 2000. and did my first hunt up there, and had an amazing experience and was in. So from then on, got a little busy, obviously doing a different kind of hunting for the next 11, 12 years.
Different type of hunting.
But then when I got back from that last deployment to Iraq, I knew it was time to get out. I knew it was time to start thinking about that transition and what I was going to do next in life. And then my kids were at an age, the oldest one, where she wanted to start hunting naturally on her own. So we just dove all in, and really since then, the only thing we've really eaten at home is wild game.
Did you pick up shooting naturally? I mean, was it tough? Was it complicated? Was it easy?
The stalking, I will say, because I didn't have the hunting background, the stalking was difficult for me.
Moving shadows and staying in things like that.
And just not being super stressed about every single move that you'd make, because it's a lot of stress there, especially if you didn't grow up hunting and understanding how the dead space works and all that sort of thing. But the shooting came, I guess, as much as it can come naturally. Mm-hmm. It's there's a picture of it right there.
Yeah,
awesome. Nice. I want to go back up there. I want to bring my family up there.
It's a fucking awesome place.
That's a top secret photo for everyone. For everyone that wants to know what it is, you'll never know.
Solid spot.
So shooting came naturally.
I'd say as naturally as it can come. Yeah.
What about you with the shooting and stuff? I mean, I know your grandfather raised you as you were raised by like gay wolves running around the wilderness and shit, but shooting, was it natural for you? Like once you got into the mill and all that stuff?
I mean, because they started me so young and we did so much of it. But really, I think we shot muzzleloader at black powder rendezvous, is what they're called.
Nice.
Growing up,
one of my favorite
every summer
stories.
was we would.
Oh, I know it.
And we would compete against each other. So my cousin we were 6 months apart, and then my other cousin he was a year younger than us. So we had 3 guys basically, but they're kids, little boys, and we're all competing against each other from a very, very, from the time that you knew that you wanted to beat your cousin, which was basically the time that you can remember anything. Yeah. So whether it was throwing tomahawks or starting fires or shooting steel, it doesn't matter. Like, you wanted to win, and it felt really, really fucking bad to lose. And I remember my cousin Danny, he was way better at that shit than I was, so I had to work. But his dad was like a legit mountain man too, so he had a distinct training advantage. His dad was like a no shit, like old, great Vietnam vet, but like hand carved all his like muzzleloaders, and like super legit dude. My dad was not like, he wasn't like an overt mountain man. He was a logger that liked to shoot, right? Whereas like the other person was hand hewing stocks and making barrels and doing all kinds of crazy shit.
See, that's the family I wish I grew up in. That's the one I wanted my whole life. It's that one right there.
You and I both.
You know?
My dad would be like, well, you can have fun once your work's over. Whereas like, my cousin, down the street at my cousin's house, it was like, what are you guys doing today? Oh, my dad's teaching me how to tie flies, and then he's going to teach me how to pound this piece of brass into a sight, and I'm going to dovetail it into the end of this muzzleloader. And you're like, get the fuck out of here,
That's
man.
So awesome.
Yeah.
I'm over here picking up sticks in the yard.
Great. No,
and
between 4th and 5th grade, I went to a camp, and they had a survival class. So it was 2-week camp, and they had a former SF Vietnam guy. Looking back, like maybe he wasn't, I don't know.
Probably.
But at the time, I'm going to still believe it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, and he taught survival, and which was like, we got to build traps, and you got to learn how to start a fire with one match type thing. You weren't actually doing the bow and drill. I did that later. I went to a little survival school.
Which one? Boulder?
Boulder? Yeah.
Out in Utah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Boulder Outdoor Survival School.
Well, which one? Which one did you do?
I did the week-long, whatever the week-long one was.
Because they got like the 3-week, the 2-week, and 1 week.
You did this as a kid, or as like a SEAL?
This I did before I went in the SEAL teams. Right. It's part of my training, my own little workup that I did before I went
your
to
skill
SEAL
set,
teams.
you learned how to box and do BJJ and survival stuff.
Yeah.
Did any of that help in buds?
I think so. The mindset, particularly boxing and jiu-jitsu, and particularly with the people that I was doing jiu-jitsu with at the time, it was early on. So and really my skills plateaued there. I don't want to build this up like I'm a jiu-jitsu guy.
Right.
I think my skills plateaued early on. But early on, if you were going to get in a fight with somebody and they weren't in your class, like you were probably going to beat that guy.
Especially back in the 90s.
Exactly. Early 90s.
Oh, dear God. Yeah, because that's...
Nobody had even heard of it.
UFC started in like 93, 94.
Something.
Really?
Yeah. I think maybe even a little.
I remember my freshman year in football, in summer camp, college football camp, I remember watching like the first UFC. And that was 94, 95.
No, I remember. I remember that because Gracie, you were looking at this even as a kid. You're like, and watching Gracie.
The guy's wearing pajamas.
Yeah, and you're like, this dude's gonna get wrecked.
Not
And
at,
like
yeah.
it
So
just
awesome.
gets, and you're like, how is this happening, right?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
and that took like the world by storm. I
Yep.
think just this like,
Yep.
because you would look at these two people, and you're fascinated by this dude, and it was like he had a superpower. And that's really what kind of excited, I think, everybody, because they're like, this dude just folded all these guys up.
Yeah,
you know?
like he was
Incredible.
fighting against Chemo, who's like this big Hawaiian dude with like travel tats and a ponytail, jacked. You're like, God, this guy's gonna kill this little Brazilian man.
Yeah,
and he just
like
beat the
you
shit
should
out of
not
him.
get in the ring with that guy. Like, do not do that.
Throw the towel in, take those
Yeah.
pajamas off. He's
Yeah.
gonna grab him and
Like,
throw
what
you.
What suit are you wearing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing with that?
You don't
And
even know
you're like,
karate.
Yeah.
Sir, how are you gonna win?
You know what? I want to watch, because you can still, I'm sure you can get any UFC, right?
Every single one of them, yeah.
Dude, I would love to go back and watch that today, because I haven't seen that. Because you remember that guy Tank?
Oh yeah,
Tank Abbott.
Yeah, Tank Abbott.
That guy had one. He was one trick pony.
One-
Hope to God that one trick didn't land on your body.
Hope to God, right? Yeah. And I remember watching that fight going, this is fucking incredible, man. This dude has a superpower. Who is this
Do you
guy?
remember when the Dutch kickboxer kicked that big Samoan dude in the face and like his tooth flew across the ring?
Nice.
No,
It's
I don't
that all that stuff helped, and all of it,
Yeah.
I think, built on the boxing, built on the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and vice versa, and then the backpacking and running, and any sort of physical thing that I was doing
Right.
back then kind of augmented the other. But
What state were
particularly
you living in?
That was Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's particularly the jiu-jitsu, because I remember they would cycle people through, and I was for the tests or whatever. So you'd be just on the mat, and as soon as somebody you were fighting got tired, they'd be out, fresh person in, and you just keep fighting. And so I still remember to this day that being one of the hardest things I've ever done is just
Right.
to keep going when the fresh people are coming in, and that's all it is a test of heart.
Yeah. So my first day in BJJ, like official BJJ class, was, I don't know, maybe a year ago. I'm 5'10", 235 pounds, couple state records in powerlifting. Pretty
big
strong.
deal.
No big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to
I
name
had a
drop. It's just
guy-
like I got a couple
No.
records.
Did I
I
mention
had
my
a
state
guy.
records?
I had a guy Evan's size, smaller than Evan, brown belt. He could have killed me 35 times in 45 minutes, and the part that drove me crazy was the sumbitch's heart rate never went above 75 beats a minute on the high side. And I was like, well, I am a useless man. I'm a weak man.
Well, unless you need
This
something
sucks.
moved, unless
Huh?
you need a big heavy object moved, then you come in handy.
Manual
Yeah.
labor of poverty or something. You know,
Right.
like, hey, the horse is lane today. We need somebody to pull the plow. Like, all right, man, I'll
See?
get out there.
Well, that horse is dead. We need you to carry it away.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's that stuff's fascinating, and there's a confidence knowing that, you know, when you start doing that, I that totally makes sense now. Like having the confidence knowing that you know what you're doing out there.
Yeah, and then distance running. Like as a kid, I would run, and I lived in these hills, and I would run these hills, and in cross country, we would win meets because we were in the hills and other people weren't. They were in the flatland.
Yeah, Flatlanders and Westies.
just running those hills. And I still remember to this day, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, just how hard running those hills were.
Right.
So
yeah, I
you-
remember I got into distance running later, like when I was in high school and college, and I would bang out 100 miles a week because that's what I would just do. I would just somewhere I heard that this was like what you had to be good at in order to
Right.
in
No,
order to
exactly.
graduate. So then I took that to like
The next level.
yeah, like a an idiot.
If
with
one's
way too
good,
much.
3 or 4 must be
then
better.
100 must be
Yeah.
good. And I remember like I would make bowls of oats, like not like the whole fucking bag. You know what I
Steel
mean?
cut oats are just
Yeah. So
Oatmeal.
I would be in my apartment, and I would make this like giant spaghetti bowl of oats, and then I'd like take honey because you're carbing up,
Honey's delicious.
Like just squeezing the honey into it, and I'd take in probably like 3,000 calories
Carb
in just
loading.
like oats because I'm like I'm going to go out and run 20 miles
Right.
tomorrow,
Fuck
and I'd
protein.
be knocking those down. Oh, I wouldn't. I was like, no fat, like no fat in my diet. There's like carbs just
All the
to
stuff
the
now
fucking
that-
max.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you skipped a heart attack. I
Oh,
mean,
dude, like, but it was literally just the fact that I was running so much, and I was burning it all off. I mean, obviously, but I remember like that was so ridiculous.
But it's crazy today. Like I think they now, like if they had the internet back then, and we could research, and they had CrossFit back then.
Yeah.
And we had all these people talking about nutrition, and we knew more about the
Jeez.
fats and the different percentages and all this stuff. It's crazy that we still have that 80%.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
attrition.
I don't think it changed a damn
so
thing.
Crazy.
Wouldn't change a damn thing.
Everybody's in
Well-
better shape, but I also have to wonder, is it the right person that we're bringing in now? Because
Right.
there's just so much of a focus. There's like a celebrity status to some that are out there.
I was sleep depriving
I don't know.
myself, like because I thought you could get
better at it?
Yeah, I thought you could get better at it.
I knew
it was
not to
fucking
do
horrible.
that.
I would set my alarm for like 3:00 in the morning and wake up and go run 3 hours and then go to class. Do stuff like that, or go out and like throw a ruck on. And I would pack my ruck at night. So this is how crazy I was, like junior in college.
Still crazy.
I'd have a ruck next to my bed. I had nothing in my room, by the way. So completely sterile.
I like it.
There was
Spartan.
nothing.
We call that Spartan.
I only had my workout objectives and my priorities that were posted on my wall. So then I would fill them out every day to include, diet and regimen and everything else. Grades were like at the very bottom of all of this. And I would set my alarm, get up at 3, go pack my ruck at night with no lights because I needed to be super squared away. So I didn't know where everything was for time. And then go do it. Like ridiculous.
Okay, I didn't do that.
I did that.
I did not do that. But I did in high school. I did remember those things that they used to sell in like a black belt magazine or whatever, and they were like a canvas board. And back in the day, they used to show karate guys. They would just hit them until their fists bled or their knuckles bled. So I'd put one of those next to my bed with a Chinese symbol that, I don't know, probably or Japanese symbol, probably says idiot.
Right.
But it's whatever it said. It's 2 little symbols. And so I trained myself, and my alarm would get up. I would wake up, and I'd immediately hit that thing. Like I just woke up to hit as soon as I woke up.
That's
and I did that
awesome.
all through high school, all through college, and I just broke that habit a couple of years ago. of
Seriously?
Waking up, so if I was in a nap and someone woke me up from a nap, I would immediately be bringing this arm up here to cover my jaw, and I'd be doing this. And so I just grew out of that recently.
Navy,
So fucking
greatest
epic.
SEAL story ever fucking told
Seriously.
in the history of the world.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome.
Holy shit. Let me ask you this real quick. So
Maybe a little weird.
were there guys in the Q course or in Buds that didn't do the type of stuff that y'all did? Was there
Tons.
anyone that ever just came in off the street that made it?
Yep.
Yeah, there were guys like, dude, I was doing all this crazy shit. I didn't wear socks. I didn't wear socks for like a decade because I thought my feet were supposed to be hard. I didn't wear socks. I didn't wear underwear. I'd be sleep deprived. I'd run all the fucking time. Like,
But, hey,
I'm surprised I didn't like.
You weren't punching the board though, bro.
No,
You did take it to the next level.
That's next level shit. Like that's like punching the board. But I'd show up and I'm like, I'm doing all this crazy shit, and some fucking dude would show up and be like, "Well, how'd you train for this?" I didn't fucking train for this.
Yeah, someone said, I found out what SEALs were in boot camp. Like that one. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been training since I was 7 years old, solely focused on this. And you didn't do anything, and you just found out about it in boot camp, and then you just showed up and passed? Like, what?
That's like-
and some of those guys go on to be great SEALs.
That's
you
like
know?
JT, how JT got into the JTAG world is he was in Air Force boot camp, whatever it's called, and some dude like walked up and was like called out 6 names, and like those guys they were like in another room, and JT's like, yeah, that's a 6. And he goes, do we get to use lasers? And the guy's like, absolutely. He goes, all right, we're going with you. JT had no fucking clue what any of that was.
I remember talking to a dude, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I didn't even know about this. I just didn't want to go to Korea, so I put it in my pack."
Nice.
Like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, it's interesting how the military does that
Fuck
sometimes.
you.
Let's talk more about the punching of the thing. When's the last time?
Fascinating.
When is the last time you got up and punched something? Just hold on.
Wasn't that
not
long
out of
ago.
instinct, but out of the desire to train? Like, hey, if I'm gonna punch this fucking thing, I'm gonna be ready.
I think college was the last time I actually had the board,
Right.
but it stayed with me for a long time because those are formative years.
Yeah,
right there,
yeah.
and then you're solely focused on it. And
Yeah.
I remain solely focused on that job really for the last 20. But punching the board thing, I mean, I did that up until very recently. Just the instinct stayed with me for a long, long time. But
Until you-
now I think it's gone.
So you like got up and punched your
it's
wife? Is that what happened?
I did not actually punch because I'd always go like that. Like for years it was just like this, and then I would stop right about there. But I always came like this, right up there to the jaw with the left hand, and ready to throw.
Some Hollywood
throw it right.
asshole is listening to this right now and is going to factor
Do
that.
that.
into a SEAL movie.
Dude.
I think it's good for mindset actually.
Yeah.
I don't need to do this my
Or
whole
it's
life,
good
but
for
it-
your
it
cortisol
worked.
levels, and you're gonna have a fucking heart attack.
It worked.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jeez,
It
I need to
worked.
get those checked.
You made it.
I made it.
Congratulations,
It worked. Thank
it
you.
worked.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It might have been the one thing that got you through.
You never know. You never know. I think really it was just the shame of coming home not having passed is really what made it through. I probably didn't need to punch the board.
I already had a plan for that. I was just gonna disappear, maybe change my name.
That's a
like,
good plan.
I don't know. I was just
Yeah,
gonna like
solid.
disappear. I'm never showing my face back there ever again.
Exactly. You just gotta start
Just
over.
Gonna, like,
Gotta
start
start
over.
anew.
Gonna start over. My new name's gonna be Ethan. Gonna go be organic farmer. I'm just about peace. You know,
Yeah,
something like
there's
that.
not
I
many
don't
options
fucking-
left.
I've got
after
a
you don't make it
handful of
back.
buddies that they will attribute the reason they made it through Buds, was the fear of having to go and be in the fleet and live on a ship for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, mine
I
was
can
more
imagine
telling
that's
my friends I didn't
motivation,
make
yeah.
it, but yeah, the ship is definitely not something you
Because they said
you want to go.
Navy. You call it boot camp, right?
Yeah.
So they said in boot camp you learn how to live on a ship and fold stuff and put it in a little drawer and stuff. And they were just like,
Seriously?
Well, just like OCS, yeah, folding clothes and folding
how to live on a
folding
ship,
underwear,
because most of the
folding-
Navy is on a ship. I mean, and they were like, the thought of failing is
Hey.
one thing, but the thought of having to fail and then go live on a ship for 4 years, I'm going to Canada or Mexico.
Haze, gray, and underway.
That's it.
You know,
That's it. So
different life. That's the life we live.
yeah, I mean, everybody has their thing. Yeah, everyone has their El Guapo.
So let Baker stop talking for a while because I want to transition into
I'm entertaining, asshole.
you're getting ready to get out. How many years you got in?
Well, as I'm getting ready to get out,
Yeah.
I have about at 17 years or so. And
Okay.
then really during that last year, though, is the one where
Right.
I'm like, okay, now it's time to
time.
really put some thought into this and figure out my next move. And I've always wanted to write. I
So
always wanted
you
to do
knew
this.
that's what you were going to do.
Yeah.
So you didn't fuck around. That's exactly what you're going to do.
That's
Had
it.
you been writing stuff at all to the Lido?
No, I hadn't been practicing at all. But what did transition over was all the study I did on insurgencies, counterinsurgencies,
fuck yeah.
terrorism,
Yeah,
Islam,
Yeah.
where we were going in the world, lessons
Right.
learned, like all the stuff I was doing for the job.
Yeah.
Because that's what I felt I owed the guys
Yeah.
under my command was to do, do all that. Any spare time I had was spent training, whether it was my body or my mind,
Right.
because I felt I owed that to them, to their families, to the country, to the
Right.
mission, and then all that stuff really transitioned over to the novels because it's
Right.
a political military thriller. So is the second one, and so all that stuff I do fact check because over time memory fades and all that, but I have that back there. I have all that training. I have all that study in my head, and now I just work it into the storyline of a fictional narrative.
But did you formulate storylines though? I mean, you maybe not writing, but you didn't think about, oh, this would be a good book, this would be a good idea. None of that.
Nope. During my last year, I wrote down when it's time to get out of the military, and you kind of go in a separate section, drop your papers as an officer, and they're like, okay, you're not one of us anymore. Now your job is to really get out of the military.
It's like a super
administratively.
cool place with like really shiny silverware and like everybody's like pretentious and
Well,
a
no
little
one
different
knows-
place where the officers go.
Well, actually, it's
got
where
that.
everybody else goes. Yeah, no, it's where everybody else goes,
Right.
and you just have to go through your classes and get
Right.
everything signed and do all your physicals and all that stuff. But essentially, you're off the radar.
Right.
So it's during that time that I started writing, and I wrote down, I think 5 or 6 different ideas for stories, and wrote them all down. And then I picked the one I thought was going to be the most hard hitting, the most visceral, the most primal, right out of the gate, because I wanted the one that was most likely to get published.
And that was Terminal
That
List.
was Terminal List. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wrote the plot first,
Okay.
and then the title came right after. As soon as I saw
Right.
just the little outline synopsis, I said, okay, Terminal List. It just came to my head, and then started writing, and yeah. So
So
I didn't-
tell us about the story without giving it away.
yeah, so it's it's a political military thriller like a Brad Thor, Vince Flynn, Nelson DeMille, Stephen Hunter, that kind of political military thriller. And what always appealed to me growing up in both books and movies was that theme of revenge. It's like an age-old theme that brings us really back to the fire,
Yeah.
around the campfire, defense of tribe, providing for family, providing for the tribe. I wanted something that would tap into that for people psychologically. So I
Right.
knew that, hey, this is going to be a story of revenge. And then I thought, well, how do you make it a story of revenge without constraint, quote unquote? Meaning that there are a lot of those stories out there where the guy has nothing left to lose. And I thought of how Japanese samurai used to go into battle thinking they were already dead,
Right.
and how that made them more effective and efficient warriors on the battlefield. I picked that up somewhere along the way. And I said, how do you translate that to a modern warrior where someone has a background that's similar to mine? How do we do that? And so that's where I brought in a conspiracy that I got from studying the church hearings in the late 70s, where some...
The Frank Church,
Yep. That's it, Center.
the Center of Frank Church hearings is what you're referring to, which is
Yep.
extremely interesting when you dive down the fucking rabbit hole on that. It's where the family jewels that's where they came out. This is like an incredible time in American history. Just a
Yep.
caveat to that.
No, absolutely. And it's so more broadly...
What's it called one more time?
The church hearings.
The church
I
hearings.
think they had an
Yeah.
official name, but they're known by the church hearings if you Google it.
Yeah.
But really, what it did, more broadly, is it uncovered some overreaches, I'll say, by different agencies of the federal government.
So William Colby, I think, was the director at the time,
I'm not sure.
So Colby was the director. And so some interesting facts behind all of this, which is super cool because I love this time in history, which is they started deep diving into what the agency was really up to. They realized that the United States population didn't really have a great insight into what was happening within the intelligence community, and the executive office had a ton of fucking power. Not only that, it wasn't necessarily the executive office; it was the director of the agency. I'll characterize some of this, and then, but Colby was actually the last director of the agency that came from the agency. Okay. So post that was they replaced him with H.W. Bush. Basically, came in right after that. So Bush was a Nixon appointee. Bush came in as a Nixon. Into the White House under Nixon. He came into the agency much later, but there's some really fucking fascinating history around the agency at that time. So this is super cool that you put this in.
And you're a huge Bush fan, like
HW. Yeah. He would classify it as overreaching. I would classify it as the most fun you could probably ever have had as an agent in the federal government.
Probably true.
In the United States, like from 1946 to 1973 or 1978, you would have been a fucking rock star. Like if you got into the right place at the right time, amazing.
You can do amazing things back then. And today, just look at that news today. So we have the Saudi Arabia, the guy walking to the end. So all that stuff with cameras everywhere, it's changed the game. Things you could get away with even 10 years ago, you can't get away with today.
Can't get away with them. And you can, they just have to be...
Got to adapt.
Yeah, your tradecraft has to evolve, right?
Yep,
so the problem with government bureaucracies is that tradecraft doesn't evolve because they're institutions that are governed, and doctrine is hard to shift. So that's just my own 2 cents.
No, that's why the enemy did so well against us in Iraq and Afghanistan and continues to do so well against us, is because they can adapt outside the constraints of a gigantic bureaucracy.
That's why startups are effective against large corporations.
Black Rifle Coffee.
Black Rifle Coffee. Black Rifle Coffee is actually in the book, which I thought was fucking super cool.
Yeah.
So keep going, because I think this is super interesting. So you wrapped it up.
So I wanted to figure out a way that the protagonist of the story, named James Reese, how he would think. How do you make a guy think that he's already dead?
Reese. Where did you come up with that name? Did you just pull it out of your fucking ass? Or?
That's going to remain classified.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Got it.
But
because I know a guy named Jimmy Reese.
Someone else told me that recently too.
He's a CAG guy.
Army guy.
He's a CAG guy. He's a great dude.
I had no idea when I came up with it, but I
Jimmy
do.
Reese
I do
is
now.
A freaking great dude.
And he's got a great name.
Yeah.
And so I figured, how do you do this? How do you make that? How do you take that going into battle, thinking they're already dead from samurai times to today? And so that's when I came up with the study of the church hearings and some of the things that the agency and other elements of the federal government had done in testing things on nation's soldiers, on prisoners, and people in mental institutions, hospitals, college students, and then a bunch of rules out of the church hearings. There was a bunch of rules that came down that says that you can't really do that anymore.
Congressional oversight.
Exactly. Review boards and all this sort of thing. So I'd say, hey, what if it's been enough time has passed since then, where there is a private sector / government conspiracy to test some drugs on our nation's most elite soldiers, some beta blocker type stuff. And what if it goes wrong and they need to get rid of all evidence that they did this testing without the consent of these soldiers?
Right.
So that's where the side effects of these drugs affects this SEAL troop. Right. And he thinks he's dying. So that's not giving too much away. I don't want to. I'm trying to frame it
because people are they're going to want to either download it or they're going to want to purchase it for sure.
So point being, he's going into this new battle thinking he's already dead. This conspiracy takes his troop on the battlefield, his family on the home front, and he comes up with this list called the terminal list as he unravels this conspiracy, putting people on his list. And then he essentially becomes the insurgent that he'd been fighting for the last 16 years. Right. So he takes what worked against us in Iraq and Afghanistan, brings that to home soil as he works his way up his list to the highest levels of the federal government, putting people in the ground.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
And thanks for listening. We're all going to go read the book now
We're
again.
going to go read the book. Okay, but this is just number one.
This is number one.
When's number 2 come out?
Second one is April 2nd of next year.
Yeah,
and then just did another book deal with Simon & Schuster. So there's at least 2 more in the pipe. And I started working on number 3 last week. So and I'm super excited about that one. Yeah.
Number 3. So number 2's done.
Number 2 is essentially done. It'll be in edits from now until late November, early December.
Right.
But so at the same time, you're working on a new book while you're editing the old one. So it's just kind of how this one book a year cycle works.
How much would you say you improved from book 1 to book 2?
So it's different. And I wanted to not just do a carbon copy of book number 1 and book number 2 and change locations and change conspiracy or whatever. I needed to do something that elevated it to a new level. And this has been, just out of the gate, has been just an amazing experience. And I love every part of this writing process.
You enjoy the process?
I love the process.
Wow.
And I love learning new things about
don't hear that very
publishing.
often.
And I love every single part of it, creating it and then editing it and just learning about this industry as I go along and getting better at certain things, understanding the marketing. Because essentially, I look at this, yes, I'm an author, but I'm also an entrepreneur because you have to be. You're your own, you're doing your own marketing. You're building a business essentially from the ground up when you're starting off as a debut author. I mean, you don't have to, but I think to be commercially successful and to be able to get the word out, you have to be able to leverage things that maybe you couldn't 20, 30 years ago, but today are available to you. Social media and staying up with all that sort of thing and figuring out how to map that land space, understand it. And for me, I never did anything there other than know to stay away from it in the military because of how the enemy could exploit that.
Yeah.
I'm stepping into a whole new world, a whole new landscape. And I love that because I love learning new things. That's what I loved about the SEAL teams. I was learning something new there every day, adapting to the enemy, studying, and then learning things from guys in the platoon and the troop because you have people coming from all these different walks of life in the SEAL teams, from people, inner city people. You have people from the middle of the country that have never seen the ocean before. You have Rhodes scholars that are coming in as enlisted guys.
Right.
You have just people coming from all these different backgrounds, which I think also made us stronger and able to adapt better on the battlefield because you have so many people from these different backgrounds.
How long did it take you to write this book?
About a little over a year.
And then how long did it take you to write the second book?
And then, you're definitely, so the first one a year and then about 6 months of editing.
Yeah.
So let's say
that's
a year
about
and a
what
half.
Ross said with his books. He said the first one was about a year because you understand the process more and you know shortcuts and all that stuff.
Right.
And the second one, so I already started the second one before I even submitted this to Simon & Schuster because there's so many examples of people whose first book don't make it, and their second one knocks it out of the park.
Right.
So John Grisham, he wrote A Time to Kill first and couldn't
Such
give
a
that
good
book away.
writer, yeah.
And then he wrote The Firm, and then that's the one that took off and has the movie and all that. And from then on, it's Pelican Brief and Client.
I think
and
I've
all
read
that.
pretty much every book he's ever written.
It's great, but I think his best one is that one that out of the gate didn't
Right.
quite make it, A Time to Kill.
Yeah.
I love that book.
Hands down.
Time to Kill is amazing.
Yeah, and then Term Limits with Vince Flynn, same thing. So he self-published that one.
Well, you know who there's the author that's actually, I think everything he's ever written is a home run is Cormac McCarthy. All the Pretty Horses, No Country for Old Men, Blood Meridian.
Yeah,
I mean, that guy,
and that's a different guy. I'd throw him into the literary column. This would
Right.
go in the commercial fiction, political
Right.
thriller
Yeah.
type thing. So it's I read his stuff, and a lot of people read both, but I think it's definitely, so you can do that and be a little more reclusive. But for this commercial fiction, if you want
Yeah.
this to be a success, you've got to map that landscape.
Are you
You've got to build a
happy with the
business.
finished product here on this?
I love it. Absolutely.
Really?
I got it to as good as
That's
it could
super
possibly
badass,
be,
man.
and then sent it off to Simon & Schuster.
Well, and you've got Brad Thor. He reviewed it. You've got Steve Barry. Who's Steve Barry?
An author.
Okay.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
Such a great guy.
Chris Cox, NRA. Chuck Norris?
Chuck Norris, baby.
How in the hell did you get Chuck Norris?
I know. Crazy.
Right?
Chuck Norris FaceTimed me out of the blue about 2 years ago, I guess it would be now.
Like, how did he FaceTime you out of the blue, dude?
So a friend of mine was, so I guess it wasn't really out of the blue.
Right.
A friend was at his ranch and
He's
told
like,
him about
"Hey."
me and that I was such a fan growing up. You know, I mean, who didn't love the Delta Force, Lone
come
Wolf
on.
McQuaid? I mean, I
Yeah.
love that stuff.
Right.
Silver ladders and stuff.
They FaceTime me. So all of a sudden, Chuck Norris is there on my FaceTime.
That's badass,
awesome,
dude.
yeah. And so we
Do you
got him a
have his
book
phone
and,
number?
I don't think I have. his
Yeah,
phone
that's what
number.
I would say to
Yeah.
me, too. I'd totally say that.
But could not have been nicer. Could not have been more amazing. And
Right.
blurbed the book and took a picture with it. And just such a good guy. Such
An
a good guy.
extremely unique thriller. Absolutely intense.
Bam.
That's what Chuck Norris said.
Bam.
You've
Yeah.
got, since Jack Carr is a former Navy SEAL, you would expect accuracy, intensity, a battle wisdom from his first novel, The Terminalist. What you might not expect is crackerjack plotting, vivid characters, both in and out of uniform, and a relentless pace, worthy to finish. It's a great start. Stephen Hunter.
Bam.
Stefan or Steven?
Steven.
Okay.
Who's a great guy. I've read, he's probably the best guy as far as in writing
Really?
these kind of thrillers today.
Okay.
He wrote Point of Impact, which came out in the early 90s, and they made the movie Shooter out of it.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
Bob Lee
Yeah.
Swagger series. So
Gotcha.
that's who Stephen Hunter is. And he doesn't do the social media thing, doesn't do the marketing thing. He just writes incredible novels. And he's become we haven't met yet in person, but because of the modern mediums of communication, you can really develop a relationship with somebody. And
Right.
he's been so nice to me. That's just such a great guy.
Like a bullet from Jack Carr's custom-built sniper rifle, the story arrives on target with devastating impact. Trust me, you won't be able to put this one down. Mark Owen.
Yeah, that's it.
So who really shot bin Laden then? Because, I mean, if...
I was not there.
Right.
I will say I was not there.
You weren't there.
Nope.
But you know who's going to be on here in the next couple weeks? Is
Who's that?
O'Neill.
Okay.
Yeah, he's coming out in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I do not know him, and I'm
You
sifting
don't?
through my phone here because.
Are you trying to find Chuck Norris?
I am not trying to
Come
find Chuck
on.
Norris. I'm going to look.
Do it
looking
for Evan.
something.
He does so much for people. Give him something.
We can send Chuck some Black Rifle.
Oh,
coffee.
that'd be great.
Would you like to do
dude.
that?
That
We'll
would
send
be
him
epic.
Yeah, we'll send him a little care package.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Because
He's the
I
first
mean, it's
guy
Chuck Norris.
He's the first guy to ever serve in Delta and SEAL Team 6 at the same
Right.
time.
How did he
Unbelievable.
pull that off?
I don't know.
So what do you think? Do you think they're going to turn this thing into a movie?
I think they might.
Yeah?
I think they might. I'd love to be able to announce something on this show today,
Right.
but I've been sworn to secrecy,
Have
so
you?
I'm not allowed. And plus, I want the person who optioned it to be able to kind of have a clean slate when he announces it.
So when he does announce it, let's announce it here. We'll follow suit. We'll push it out for you. That's for sure. Everybody, this is Jack Carr. Where do they find you on social media?
All right. So there's a few things, which is why I was
Please.
just looking at my phone
pull
right
that
now.
up before we wrap.
So I was just told to do this. This is a
Okay.
new thing. This is part of my
Do it.
education in marketing and social media landscape and all that stuff. So people can text 44222.
44222.
44222
Yep.
on their phones.
Yep.
And then it'll pop back up with a little message
Shut
from me.
up.
Yeah, let's
Seriously?
see if it works. Let's test
I'm
it.
gonna do it right now.
Yep, test it out. This will be the first time this has ever been announced. My publicist will be very happy that I actually remembered to do this.
44222.
Yep. Let's see what happens.
Just got a dick pic. It's weird.
That's it.
It's weird.
That's it. So it's supposed to come up
44222.
44222.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And then you can reply with your email,
Right.
which puts you on the team.
Oh shit.
Yep. Yep. So
I got nothing back.
Oh, come on.
Baker, you try it.
Try it. Are you on airplane mode?
No. 44222.
Got it.
Yep. You got it? Did it work?
Yep.
Did Evan just mess it up?
44222.
That's it.
No, I screwed it up. I got lead digit identifier not recognized.
Oh, man. All right. We'll have to edit this out then.
Oh yeah, lead digit identifier not recognized. We are going to have to edit this one.
Oh, bummer. It worked on mine. Man.
Did it really?
Yeah. Well, the other day when I tested it. So, yeah.
So let's start over. Where can we? Well, first we'll start over at another piece, which is
Got it. I did it right. It worked.
how'd you do it?
Did it?
right?
So what you do is you text 44222 and you just say anything and they'll respond and say, hello, please reply with a text containing only your email address so we can send you everything we promised. Thanks.
Is that what it says?
Yep.
It's supposed to
But
say.
you have to text it again. So there's no.
It says you're supposed to say, good copy. Please reply with a text containing only your email address for special access.
Oh, thank you for opting in. Reply. Yeah. There you
Did it
go.
work? So it only works sometimes.
Okay.
I'm going to try
So
this. I'm going to try this.
Try that. Try it again.
Let's see.
Dave, you
Bam.
try it. We're all trying it. Everyone try it in the room.
44222.
Yours just put a
Dave.
little hyphen in there. Mine didn't have a little hyphen. that
Mine
showed
put a
up.
hyphen. I think that's what screwed it up.
Yeah, mine didn't do
Oh,
that.
is that what's going on?
Yeah, so mine just showed up as a 44222, but no, there was no hyphen. But I
You
didn't
have an
have to do
iPhone or
anything.
do you have one of those other weird phones?
I have an iPhone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dave, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 44222, no hyphens.
No,
But y'all are both comms guys, right?
I can't do that.
Y'all are both
It doesn't
comms
work.
guys, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't work.
Sunspots.
It does it automatically.
Sunspots, sir.
I was a comms guy too. So, hey, so the interesting thing is who put us together was Tom Davin.
Yep.
So Tom has been on the show. He incredible guy, former Force Recon guy, former CEO of 511. Awesome dude. I was just down in at Clever Talks with Tom.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was good.
Nice. Is that the San Diego one?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we went down there and spoke.
Tom's so great. What a great story. What a smart guy. Great friend, great mentor. And things he did with 511 is amazing. Well,
Yeah.
he has a track record of success. We'll say that.
Yeah, a lifetime of success and achievement. Then we met officially face to face, which I think is kind of a funny story because we met for the first time at Performance Archery in San Diego.
Yeah. You made me a great cup of coffee.
I did.
I appreciate it.
I did.
And we did it again here. No,
Yeah.
but that was a great experience out there. We met up with Jocko and Rogan and John Dudley and Andy Stumpf and John Barklow, and we had a solid crew out there at Performance Archery. It was a fun time.
It was
Great weekend.
Super cool. Like that entire weekend was awesome. How's your that's the thing I was going to ask you. How's your archery stuff?
All right. Well, since I saw you, I have not shot the bow as much as I should.
Right.
Which is why I hunted with the rifle this year.
But you got your dry fire mechanism.
So,
right?
well, I got my knock to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my knock to it. I only got the dry fire trainer. You're right.
Yeah, the dry
I love
fire
that, and
trainer.
I've been doing that a lot because it's easy to travel with, and it's it kind of relaxes me.
Same.
And,
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
So
I
you
love
know what I did on mine, where that knot is on the top. I actually burned the knot in, so I focused that as my sight. So it
okay.
gives me a sight at the top of that knot.
Nice.
It actually gives me something to aim at. So it's just like doing steady drills on dry firing with a pistol or whatever if your sight's moving. So I've got a spot on my wall in my office at home, and then I've got that, and then I'll line them up, and then I'll pull. So I'll be pulling tension against each other to see how much movement there is.
Ooh, I like that.
It was good, man.
Take
It was
it to
a
next
good
level.
next level for me. I liked it a lot.
Did John Dudley knock on TV tell you to do that? Because he
No.
neglected to mention that to me.
He didn't. I used to do that with dot drills all the time.
Got it.
Dry fire,
Dry
with my
fire
pistol.
stuff. Awesome.
So I just was like, this is dry fire and pistols just for a bow. So I need to see how much movement there is. And ultimately, I want that to move, but I want it to move straight forward, right?
Okay.
I don't want it to come off at an angle. So that was the one thing that I was concentrating on the last couple of months.
No, I love it. And I love that knock to it release. That is the way to go.
Yeah.
So for people that are listening that shoot bows, I happen to be a bow guy. What are you talking about? The dry fire, like the cord thing?
I don't know what is that called?
Okay, because I don't
So-
want people
yeah.
going home and pulling their bows out and
Oh
fucking
God,
dry
no, don't
firing
dry
them.
fire your fucking bow. No, no.
And also, a good thing to do when you travel with your bow, and I learned this from that weekend at Performance
Right.
Archery, is to zip tie your strings together
Yes.
on your bow.
Yeah.
So that if somebody at TSA opens it and says, oh, look at this.
Look at this.
And then they pull it
Pang.
back and let it go because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, now they can't do that if you have a
See,
zip tie around
God
there.
damn
So
it, man! Now I have traveled all over the world with my bow. I've never had the first piece of problem with it, and now
you gotta-
you put the juju, you put the albatross around
So
my
you
neck.
better-
I gotta,
yeah.
I'm gonna start doing
you better
that.
zip tie it. But
But
yeah, the trainer, I forget what it's called, but it's on John Dudley's website.
it's
So a
the-
different
it's the
company, I
thing
think,
that pull-
makes
it's
it.
a string that pulls back. Yeah, okay. So
Yeah. But it's on his website under
Yeah.
products or gear.
Yeah,
And the
great
knock
thing.
to it is the release. And then
Yeah.
the trainer, I think, is called the trainer. And
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
cool. A piece
yeah.
of wood and some string.
great.
It's awesome.
and you don't have any more hunts this year?
What do I have
You
this
got a
year?
rifle
Well,
hunt this month, right?
I'm heading to Africa in a couple weeks.
Go every year.
And I'm going
Where?
to train. I'm going to South Africa and help train up an anti-poaching unit out
Hell
there.
yes.
So,
When is that?
That is in 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that like for fun, or you recreationally
So it's both.
doing
So
that?
the second novel starts, I don't want to give too much away,
Yeah.
but it starts with an anti-poaching type theme in Africa, in Mozambique. And I went to Mozambique before I'd even submitted this book to Simon & Schuster, and I was doing research out there. I was taking pictures of the ground, the rocks, the foliage, like just to get a sense of what it was like out there, talking to the people. So I incorporated that all into book number 2, and we did some anti-poaching stuff out there at the time, but this is a specific trip just to do the anti-poaching stuff. So it's M4s and Glocks are what the anti-poaching unit has out there. So a Marine buddy is actually heading it up, and then I'm kind of there I'm just going to be helping
In
out.
Mozambique?
We're going to South Africa this
That's
time.
right. Yeah, you said
Okay.
that.
Yeah. So
Well,
it's a thing
South Africa is super safe, so you're gonna have a great trip there. Like it's
I think as you stay out of the cities, you're pretty good.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's a lot going on in South
There's a
Africa. I go
lot.
every year. I go every summer.
Nice.
I went to Botswana like a decade ago, and I trained their counter poaching guys just south of the Okavango, and it was an epic trip. It was just me for the most part.
Oh wow!
So it was with a couple companies of Botswanan Defense Force guys. It was great. It was a great trip, man.
I'm looking forward to it. And then I'll be able to talk about it as
Right.
someone, not just someone who's read about it and I had a little experience in Mozambique, but to actually go there and have the sole focus of the trip being to train up these guys and evaluate how they are right now and just see what we can add, see if we can make them a little better. And then I'm going to be there learning at the same time and incorporating what I get into future novels.
That's rad, dude. That's cool. That's really freaking cool, man. I'm jealous. Very jealous.
So check out Jack Carr. Where do they find you on social?
So you can find me on officialjackcarr.com.
Okay.
And that's the website. So people that really want to do more of a deep dive into the weapons, I think I have some stuff on there on M4, on the sniper weapon systems, on some of the knives, some of the things used in the book. The evolution of the cover is also something I talk about.
Oh, really?
There, how that comes about and how you work with a publisher on that. So more of a deep dive on the website. And then I'm on social media at Jack Carr USA on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But Facebook, I don't do anything. People, I think I have someone that just puts up ads and stuff on there.
Right.
But Twitter and Instagram are the two that I do myself and that I interact with people on and and I really like being able to thank people that have gone out and enjoyed the novel and reach out on social media and tell me that they like this part or that part or this part really spoke to them, because really, it's a novel of fiction, but the emotions that the protagonist feels are all real emotions that I felt at some point over the last 20 years. So I just take those and I twist them into a fictional narrative. So being able to interact with people on Twitter and Instagram primarily, I really do enjoy doing that and having a platform to thank everybody that's helped me along this journey. So
that's cool.
It's epic, man.
It's fun.
So grab the book, make some Black Rifle coffee, and sit down for a hell of a ride. As a reminder, just a caveat, guys, like this is... Like Jack didn't pay us for this. Like this is a true endorsement based on we truly respect his past, what he's doing today, who he is. So we do not do like paid endorsements for Launch Code. This isn't a thing. Like we're not doing any marketing out here for this. It's just an endorsement of the man, his transition, and we love to just provide value through epic people. He is fucking one of them. So get out, check out the book, leave a review on Amazon because I know that helps quite a bit.
It does.
And follow him on social media because he's a fucking rad dude.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Cheers.
Cheers. Let's get some more coffee. You guys know
some
where
more coffee.
I know where I can get a good cup?